a sight for my soul.
Welcome to the Inspired Evolution, and it is a total inspiration to be here today. We have with us none other than Peter Sage. Peter, how are you, brother?
Oh my goodness, what an amazing introduction, welcome, sound, energy bite. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard an introduction to a podcast that sounded on such a note. I'm excited just by listening.
I hope you've had your morning coffee. If you haven't, it's all good. Don't stress. Now
We are your morning coffee.
Pretty much. For those tuning into Peter for the first time, serial entrepreneur, but honestly, there is so much that he gets up to in the world. He's written some really amazing books, but thought leadership, philosophy, seriously, trying to live a life on your own terms. His whole thing has been self-mastery for a long time. But the philosophies that go into that are really, really intriguing, really endearing. I'm so excited for this conversation to come today. I'm going to try not to put you on a pedestal, but, bear with me if I keep doing that. Pardon me for doing that. Thank you so much for doing this, Peter. Really, really appreciate having you here.
No, absolute pleasure. And again, just on that note, one of the things I try to remind as many people as I can of is the fact that, we're just guys. Yeah, you and I, people, if they put somebody on a pedestal, by definition, you minimize your own greatness by contrast. And that goes against the message, paradoxically, that we're trying to give. So remember, we're just you on camera right now, but there's nothing you're going to hear today that you can't step into as part of your own journey.
So when you're at home, start practicing this. And you can totally manifest it for yourself. Okay, Peter, let's go there. On one of the topics of conversation that I really was hoping to have with you, and usually what I try to do is like the big thing that is really burning for me to just ask it out of the gate. What holds most people back, in your opinion, from actually living and executing the life that is calling them? Like we all know that there is the life that is, if I was to live life on my own terms, no compromise, I would be out there executing in X, Y, Z direction. But at the moment, to make ends meet, to sort of just get by and do things the way that, society is sort of programmed for me, I'll just do A, B, C. What holds us back from X, Y, Z, in your opinion, having worked with like yourself, but also so many people on the path of self-mastery?
In all fairness, it's a pretty simple answer, but it doesn't excuse the profundity of how to unpack it. And the simple answer is fear. But there's levels within levels. I mean, we're born with two primary fears. The fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. That's the natural fears that we have. Everything else is learned behavior. And that learned behavior is where the trouble starts to show up. Part of that has its genesis in the roots of parenting. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. That's not what I'm projecting judgment on. But when we are born as a parent, thanks to the miracle of nature and oxytocin, babies can't do anything wrong. They may decide that it's 2 a.m. and you haven't slept. They don't say, let's give mum dad a break. I'll leave it till 7. They can have a line. No, they're going to scream because they want feeding. It's natural egocentricity of a baby to project that. And we understand that. We don't stop loving the baby. It's inconvenient to our schedule, but we don't stop loving the baby. You could have your partner say, just hold little Charlie for a second while I get my handbag because I'm off to a important interview. And all of a sudden, little Charlie, when you hand them back, throws up over mum's new dress or interview suit. It's inconvenient. You don't blame the baby. It's what babies do. But there is a point around about, 12 months, 18 months, where there is this understanding of some level of two-way communication. So that when you're training or trying to teach or interact with a baby and you know that they actually understand what you mean, there is a model imposed at that point that really puts in the basis for conditional love. Now, the parent doesn't intentionally have conditional love. The parent loves the baby and the child unconditionally. But from the perspective of the child, there is a model that clicks into place that says, if I do good, or what's expected of me, then the reward is love, connection, approval, etc. If I don't, the perception of the child is that love is withdrawn. You're naughty. No, don't do that. If you do that again, this will happen. There's consequences. And that's great for training levels of behavior, but what it instinctively instills is that love is conditional. So by our first earliest memory, which for many people 4, 5, 6 years old, We've already had several years of training that love is conditional. We then spend the rest of our lives projecting that into our own lives and relationships, wondering why they're dysfunctional. And that translates into, when it comes to business, when it comes to living our potential, when it comes to taking risks, when it comes to fear of failure, fear of rejection, a level of emotional maturity that is grounded back in that pattern. And that particular pattern then creates an unnatural fear. Yeah, the natural fears, loud noises and falling. The unnatural fears, the learned fears, the primary fear that psychologically that people have is the fear that they're not enough and therefore they won't be loved. And when you take that into account, it cascades into an entire protection mechanism of behaviors that limit our own potential. So that's really its genesis in what stops people moving forward. That's why I say there is a massive difference between biological maturity and emotional maturity. Yeah, you and I both know and have probably had experiences ourselves where, there's a big difference between, somebody who is emotionally mature and physically mature. There's a lot of emotional teenagers running around in some pretty old bodies.
Yeah, can totally attest to that.
So, that's really when you say what limits potential. There's a lot of layers to unpack. And probably one of the things I could do to share the most value in the time we have, because I'm grateful that people could put their time anywhere these days, and they've chosen at this point, if they're listening here, to give it to us. I want to try to deliver on that, not with just theory or psychology or experience, but some practical stuff that'll give them tools to be able to go and make a change in their life and start unlocking that potential, transcending those fears. That's really what my outcome is here today, so that it's not just an interesting conversation. That doesn't change your life. Information does not lead to transformation. But understanding and peeling back the layers of the onion and being able to make some shifts and have that manifest in ways where you tomorrow can start conquering stuff that's held you back, that's what I want to accomplish here today.
Awesome. Can you start stepping us through potentially how to navigate our fears? And part of me wants to ask you, why are we not taught to get out of our own way? But maybe that's a separate question. We're getting back into theory land. How do we get out of our own way?
I'll give you the 30 seconds on the why we're not taught. Most people don't know how.
Yeah.
Reality check. Up to 150 years ago, only 1.5–2% of the planet were literate. Modern education has been a big step forward, and prior to that, it was the privilege of the chosen few, the scholars, the elites, the political, the whatever it may be, and therefore knowledge has really been passed down from a limited level. It was your rabbi, your village elder, your wise man, your teacher or minister, whatever it may have been, and they can only project from the level they're at. So now we have a completely different time in human history where knowledge and spiritual understanding is exploding to the point where we can have access to decades, lifetimes, centuries of spiritual wisdom at the push of a button. That's never happened before. Right? But traditional education isn't set up to teach that. It never was. It was designed for what it was designed for. How do we take a transcending feudal system whereby, we've got to transition through industrial revolution, how to take people that are picking crops and paying landlords and essentially get them into a new set of training where they can show up on time into this new thing called a factory, do as they're told, act conformist, do not have free will, don't press the big red button, don't pull that lever. We don't want people exploring, because at that time in human history, in the late 19th century, that would have had negative consequences. So show up, shut up, sit down, do as you're told. Now that isn't going to help us in today's modern society. We need free thinkers. We need creative expression. We need people to challenge the status quo. We need people to ask the question, well, why? And not accept the answer, because that's how it's always been done. So, in answer to why aren't we taught this? Multiple layers, but that gives you an insight.
I really when it comes to the heart of it.
Don't complicate it, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to the second part of your question, how do we sort of transcend through this? Let me give you a bit of a framework. I talked about emotional maturity. Let me give you 3 quick keys that'll really help shift that. The first day in a person's life where they really start making a stride towards that demarcation of growing up. And again, not biologically, we don't get to vote on that. That's part of the rule set. I don't care how many vitamins you take, what creams you put on. 50 years from now, you're going to look different, right? That's part of the rule set. So, you can help slow it down a little bit in terms of its effect or impact. But I've got news for you. You're going to age. That's part of the game. But growing up emotionally is a choice. And one of the greatest days in a human being's life is to finally come to terms, or they finally become okay not being liked. And some people ain't going to like to hear that, because they've spent most of their life looking for somewhere else to reattach their umbilical cord, right, to get approval, connection, validation, acceptance, all the usual suspects. And the day you can finally become okay not being liked, because you shift from a model of external validation to internal validation. See, external validation is like motivation. It's like food. You can eat it and feel good in the moment, but at some point, 20 hours from now, you're going to be hungry again. It will never last. No one has a meal and says, I'm done for life. Internal validation is different. Internal validation means that I don't need you to tell me how good I am for me to know how good I am. I don't need you to project your model of the world onto me so that I have to fit your pictures in order to give me an emotional feeling that I'm not yet giving myself permission to feel. You may want to rewind and listen to that again. So the day you finally become okay not being liked is a powerful day. And one of the things that helps people transcend that is getting out of what I call GOOP, GOOP. Most people spend their life swimming and struggling through this sticky, nasty, smelly, dirty substance that limits their potential, called GOOP. GOOP stands for the good opinion of other people.
I love that. That's super handy.
And people, a lot of people listening now are sort of kind of nodding to themselves like, well, yeah. Because we become this giant adaptation machine, this chameleon of life, not this authentic expression of life. Because if you don't like me this way, I'll be that way. Oh, if I think I might offend you doing that, I'll do this instead, even though it's not my truth. Right? So Goop ruins most people's potential. It keeps them locked in this side of possibility and fear. So I want to give a metaphor here that I think will help people understand the nature of Goop, and if they're ready for it, how to step out of it, or at least begin the process.
Yes, please.
One of the metaphors I love to use, because it's so apt, is that we all star in a movie. Everyone wants to be a movie star, so now's your choice. Right? Now's your chance. We star in a movie called Our Life. Now, I know we star in that movie, and I know we are the star of that movie because we're the only single person who's in every single scene of our movie called Our Life. By definition, everybody else in our movie plays one of two roles. At best, they may be a supporting cast. There's no co-stars, right? Nobody else is in every single scene. I don't care if you're a Siamese twin, you're going to dream on your own, right? But you are the star of your movie. You may have some supporting cast, a spouse, a sibling, a best friend, or whatever it may be. But the vast, vast majority of people in your movie, for the entirety of your movie, are nothing more than film extras in your movie. Now, what is the definition of a film extra? Pretty simple. Somebody who you're not thinking about when they're not in your scene. Now, here's where it starts to go south. Because we see ourselves majority of the time as the star of our movie, and by the way, that's a good start. Most people are unpaid film extras in other people's movies, trying to make them dance around them as the star. That's just disowning your power. But even when you step into your own starring role as the star of your life, one has to understand that through that lens, most people then project that other people see them as the star of their movie. And they don't. Why? Because they're starring in a different movie. What movie are they starring in?
The movie of their life.
Exactly. Which means by definition, we play one of two roles in everybody else's movie. At best, we may be a supporting cast. But the vast majority of people who we adapt our behavior to through needing Goop are nothing more than film extras in our movie. Which means that when we're not in their scene, they're not even thinking about us. Another way to put this, if you want to encapsulate it as step number one, that you want to tattoo this on the inside of your eyelids. Right? And that is this. Most people don't care enough about you to bother to give an opinion. Why? Simple. They're too busy being worried about what they think you're thinking of them. And when you wake up to that reality, not myth, reality, when you wake up to the practical expression of what that actually means, you can let go of the fear of judgment, the fear of not being enough in the eyes of people who really, in all fairness, don't give a crap. Not because you're not worth giving a crap to, but because they're dealing with their own stuff. And so step one of emotional maturity is the day you finally become okay not being liked. Not because you want to be an asshole, but because you realize everybody else is running around in their own bubble of self-importance, wondering about what everybody else is thinking of them, when everybody else is running around in their own bubble of self-importance, wondering about what everybody else is thinking of them. I mean, it's the hilarity of it, right?
Very well encapsulated the neurosis of society.
You know?
Totally.
It's so, it's so freeing to come to that awareness, because you're writing your own script. You're not going to win an Oscar trying to be a film extra in somebody else's movie.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I would call step number one.
Sure.
When you finally become okay not being liked.
Super empowering.
Because you can own your own authenticity. Paradoxically, once you come from that place, not of arrogance, of self-importance, that I'm better than you, therefore I should be more liked and I don't care about your opinion. That's just egotism. No, I'm talking about authentic expression of showing up in your truth, not being worried about what other people think, because they're not thinking that, right? And even if they do, one thing to understand, people can only ever project from their own model of the world. We all stand at different levels on the mountain of spiritual evolution. And if you're 3/4 of the way up and you're saying, wow, look at the view over the trees, and somebody's on the ground or somebody's in the valley, or somebody hasn't reached your perspective yet, and you're trying to tell them what your truth is, trying to project it as truth, you've got no right to do so. And what are you going to get into an argument for with somebody who's shouting down the mountain that, wow, look at the view from the summit, and you're saying, I can only see the trees. And they're trying to tell you why you're wrong? Well, that's just, I say, emotional immaturity at its best. So trying to get into an understanding of that when it comes to the fact that everybody's on their own journey. When it comes to acting experience, some people have just graduated acting school. Some people have been around the block and had a few auditions and had some bit parts. Some people are good supporting cast. Some are A-list. But that doesn't make them better or worse. Let me ask you a question. What's better, a 6-year-old or a teenager?
They're both pros and cons. Yeah, they're both amazing.
Both are going to have different expressions of how they interact with life.
Totally.
But stamping your feet for an ice cream is perfectly acceptable behavior for a 6-year-old, not a 26-year-old. Right? But you don't blame the 6-year-old for doing that because it's natural. Right? It's an expression of where they're at. So, what's better, a big tree or a small tree? There's no better or worse. People are just at different levels of their own expression of potentiality on their own journey. And if you've been fortunate enough to tap into some levels of insight that other people haven't yet had the opportunity to take on or aren't ready to listen to yet, you don't teach a 6-year-old social economics. Right? If you're at that place, you can hold a space for those people rather than judgment of them. You can have more compassion and understanding. Think, wow, thank goodness that where I'm at right now, I'm not giving myself the label of victim. Which brings us into point number 2. On emotional maturity, it's our level of consciousness that governs everything. Now, Einstein turned around and said, one of his most famous statements, you can't solve a problem at the same level of consciousness that created the problem.
Love that.
Now, that sounds perfectly normal for somebody who was one of the smartest guys on the planet at the time. But transcending that into how do I deal with my relationship or pay my mortgage next week, people struggle with. So I want to give a practical framework here that'll allow you to make some sense of it and hopefully give you a framework to move forward. And remember, what we're doing here, Amrit, is really building models. It's not truth. I don't have any right to project my model of the world onto anybody else. I'm here to offer some models of understanding that hopefully give some practical benefit, because that's the purpose of a model. You see, the flat earth model is used extensively in architecture. When you build a building, you use 2-dimensional flat earth model. When you're planning a geodesic flight path from Boston to Los Angeles, you don't use a flat earth model. You're going to end up in Alaska.
You hope not.
Right? You curve around, right? You play geodesic. So models provide value to the extent of the limitations of the model. And my goal here is not to try to solve the riddle of Einstein's statement, but to provide a model that, to the extent that you use it, can give practical benefit. Okay? So what is the term consciousness? Well, for a start, it's a mind label. The mind loves to label, so it thinks it can understand. It can wrap its arms around. and therefore give it some sense of smug satisfaction that it's smart enough to actually conceptualize.
Yeah.
Yeah. For example, if we turn around and say, oh, look at that tree, we're deluding ourselves. What we're saying is we now think we understand this incredible, magnificent, complicated expression of nature because we've come up with a 4-letter word that then makes me feel smart.
Yeah.
Rather than say, that's what we call a tree. That gives us a better level of relationship to it.
Wisdom.
And admits the limitations of the label. So consciousness, the 13-letter label, is our way of trying to get our head around something that we really don't understand, so we can only come up with a model. Does that make sense?
Totally. I'm with you.
So on one side of the fence, you have kind of the Newtonian paradigm of that limits everything to some level of dualistic causality, and has its sort of shrine in the 3 primary sciences, physics, chemistry, biology. Physics dealing with particles, chemistry dealing with molecules, and biology dealing with cells. And through observation, through some pretty smart people over the years, starting predominantly with Copernicus, then Galileo, moving into Newton, we have mastered the rule set that governs those sciences that we call the physical world, to the extent that we can put a person in orbit and repair the human body. We know that. But to limit our understanding of reality to a subset called physical matter reality, when we know there's so much more. I mean, if you really want to go down that rabbit hole, what is science based on? Science is based on mysticism. What? Well, where did the universe come from? Oh, it magically appeared in one giant explosion from nothing. Okay, so what you're saying is you'll give us one free miracle, but we're not allowed to believe in any more. Got it. I mean, give me a break. Where do the rules of science come from? Right? Oh, well, anything before t equals 0 from the start of time, the Big Bang, we go talk to theologians, the philosophers, the mystics, the religion. That we don't want to know. We just want to stand on our smugness of understanding the rule set that governs the small sciences. But when it comes to consciousness, we have to step out of that. So consciousness, I want to put it into, it's not some byproduct of brain function. That's where the Newtonian paradigm goes. They try to limit it, and no science has ever been able to do that or isolate it. It's just that you're never going to do it. You're running east looking for a sunset. Not going to happen. All right? So, and then think, well, if I just look harder, if I just run faster, if I just get better diet, better trainer, better sneakers, then finally we'll crack the code of being able to find a sunset running east. Keep going. But consciousness is not a byproduct of brain function. It never has been, never will be. That's like saying, a television is responsible for producing programs.
Yeah, right.
A radio writes music. No, not going to happen. But on the other side of the fence, we have too much esotericism. Let's all hold hands, chant songs, sing to the divine, and we'll all meet in the ether. There's no practical way of being able to deal with your mortgage next week through that philosophy.
Paradigm.
And so there needs to be a happy medium. And when it comes to Einstein, there are 4 chunks that I kind of put together, levels, or levels of consciousness. I've been teaching this for close to 30 years now.
Yeah.
And the first level is what I call the level of to me. And it is the classic victim level of consciousness. It's the first primary, lowest level of consciousness. And the mantra goes something like this. I would have the life I want, the body I want, the relationship I want, the career I want, but everything happens to me. It is the mantra of blame. It is the domain of victimhood. And unfortunately, you can't educate people out of these levels. You have to grow out of them. And a lot of people choose to stay in victim because of what's called secondary gain. It prevents them from accessing desire and courage and being able to move forward into creating the life they want, rather than hoping it's going to land on their lap from some mystical fairy godmother.
Someone will come and hand it to them.
It's not going to happen. But some people get a lot out of being a victim. Secondary gain. Have you ever noticed some people are very unhappy? Some people are very happy being unhappy.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? But it's, you see it.
You understand the model. It's like, no, I get to absolve myself of any responsibility of being able to be responsible for my circumstances because I don't like them. I get to hide out from being able to give my gift in life because I'm scared of rejection. That's like the shy people, the introverts. Not being funny, but shy is simply a racket. I'll explain shy in one sentence. Please don't let you discover me because I'm scared of what you'll think. Case closed. right? It's a protection mechanism against the good opinion of other people that you fear won't be.
The goop in effect. Yeah, totally.
So, but to me, sucks. Nowhere in nature is victim rewarded. Yeah, go speak to a gazelle in the savannah, right? So the next level of consciousness that people usually grow into, especially today, is the one that is governed predominantly by personal growth. And that is the level of by me. And the mantra for that is, if I am going to have the body, the relationship, the career, the life that I want, clearly to me ain't working. Yeah. So it's going to happen by me. And you go from the victim mentality to the achiever mentality. And you're saying, right, I'm not standing on the shore waiting for my ship to come in. Disneyland thinking, ain't happening. However, I'm going to dive in. I'm going to swim upstream. I'm going to go get my goal. And you'll see a lot of the people in traditional personal growth. I spent 15 years working as a trainer with Tony Robbins. Yeah. Tony's sweet spot is getting people from to me to by me, or teaching people that are in by me how to be better in by me. It's your Grant Cardones. It's your Gary V's. It's your Dan Penys of the world. It's like you drill sergeant kind of, go out, get them, cowboy, get off your ass, pull your thumb out of your butt. A lot of people are doing that and are earning the same amount of money with double the stress. Yeah, and they know there's a better way. They just don't know how to find it. And that brings us to the third level of consciousness. And the third level is what I call through me. That's where life starts to flow through you. Now you're not swimming upstream, because if you notice, when you swim upstream and then relax and take your foot off the gas, you backslide. You're fighting life. Now, I gave up fighting life a long time ago. Why? Son of a bitch kept winning. Right?
Greater forces at play.
There's a difference between power and force. Go read the book by David Hawkins, Power versus Force. It's sublime. Changed my life.
Yeah, same.
But when it comes to through me, it's about aligning. You're no longer fighting the current. You're no longer spending your energy trying to bend back the branch on the tree of life, because it slaps you in the face when you let go. Now you're not fighting the current of life. You're spending your energy positioning yourself better in the current and flowing with it. You're navigating your boat, because every single river bends. There's no straight lines in nature. By me teaches you to go to your goal in a straight line. But that's not the fastest way. Most people think that's the fastest, most efficient way. No, the only way that model works is on a two-dimensional piece of paper from A to B on 2 points. But if you want to think that, I'm going to go get my goal, and the brain says, okay, fastest way between A and B, what's the best way to go? Well, try driving to work in a straight line.
You're not going to get there.
Try walking to the supermarket from the front door in a straight line. The first neighbor's house or intersection you're going to hit. No, the fastest, most efficient way is non-linear. Well, we're based in a non-linear reality. We know that. The primary pattern is the wave. Right? That's not straight. It's the wave that gives birth to the particle in quantum mechanics. We know that. Right? Not the other way around. So through me is about aligning with life, and that's when your synchronicities show up. That's when you're not by me in the movie of your life. By me is trying to adjust the set on the scene you're in. Through me is working with the script writers.
Love that.
It's a whole different game. The highest level of consciousness, one that a lot of the spiritual teachers arrived at and taught from, is what I call ASME. That's where you see complete oneness, separation, duality dissolves. And I've never met anybody there. We probably have experiences it briefly in certain levels of high level meditation, maybe some plant medicine ceremonies for people, etc. Give them a glimpse of understanding of that. But generally speaking, the sweet spot that I tend to work in is people that are frustrated in by me and show them how to live in through me, through methodology and scientific principles that stack up and give predictable results. So that's really where once you understand that our journey through life is reflected in that journey through our levels of consciousness. You can't take somebody who's 50 years old that is committed to being in victim mode at to me and expect them to have any kind of conversation that understands through me. Not going to happen. They have to learn that for themselves at their own time. And if I've learned one of the golden rules of being able to help people, it's this. If you want something for somebody else more than they want it for themselves, you're wasting your damn time. Sorry. And that's tough when it's your brother who's self-sabotaging or drinking himself to death.
Or your mother or your father.
Exactly. Right? Because that's their pattern. The only thing that we can do is to be the example and the invitation, and then let go of what they do with the invitation and send them love regardless. That will help us move forward.
I love that. That's so profound as well. Like leading, and I've often found that in my own ecosystem on my own journeys, like wanting everybody to come along with you at a certain point to wherever you're headed and realizing I'm not even sure if I'm headed in the right direction here. I am trying to rally everybody with me. So let me just go where I'm going. What works, works. And eventually, if you have landed somewhere pretty squarely, people will turn around and ask you, it's like, hey, how did you land so square on your feet at this place on the mountain?
They're on their own journey. And you please understand that we also have no right to take away what may be their biggest lessons. Yeah, some people have to hit their head on the sidewalk to learn how to tie their shoelaces.
Yeah.
Right? We've got no right to wrap them in bubble wrap. Now, that's not saying be callous. That's not saying not be compassionate. Again, be the example. Tie your own shoelaces. But if you think that your role is to go out and save the world, save the planet, save every starving child, you got to get your own. You've got to be the example.
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela didn't build any schools, but through him being the example of leadership, many schools got built. You know what I mean?
That's beautiful. Peter, I've got this question at this particular juncture in the conversation is I remember having this existential crisis as the purpose coach, because I remember like helping people align to, there is a calling. Everybody there is, you're here for something. I know you're not, it's not an accident that you're the universe looking in on yourself and you just happen to be here alive at this time right now. And so there's a belief system around there that I've got my model, but I believe in it. And so in there, I had this existential crisis realizing, holy cow, even when you're off purpose, you're on purpose. Like exactly what you're saying, people are on their journey because spending all that time, it's non-linear, right? You're kind of meandering around to realize, shit, I think it might be getting darker and darker down this road. Where's the light? And it's like, oh, if it wasn't so dark, you would never have gone looking for the light potentially, right? So even when you're off purpose, it's helping you calibrate back. So sort of asking you the question in terms of how, like, do you sit with that conundrum sometimes in your space in terms of we're really helping people transform and shift, but at the same time, like, where did I sort of come into this? Was this person always meant to meet me and I was just meant to always say what I said to them in order to facilitate their transformation and growth? And I am just part of their journey, which is kind of what I've reconciled myself to. It's a bit of a slippery question. What are your thoughts on that space?
If we go back to Uncle Albert, he turned around and said that the most powerful question a person can ask or answer in their lifetime is, do they live in a friendly or hostile universe? Now, those two doors lead to two very different corridors in the experience of life. If you think you live in a hostile universe, which is more the domain of by me because you're trying to control everything. To get out of to me victim and get into by me, we give up blame, we replace it with personal responsibility. That'll open the door. To get out of by me and get into through me, we give up the need for control, which freaks a lot of people out. I didn't say give up control, it says give up the need for control. That's where it's holding you tight. And you replace it with trust, faith, knowing in something bigger than you that is friendly, not hostile. And if you believe in a friendly universe, it's a global belief. So I believe in a friendly universe. I don't care what corridor I walk into. If I think that the universe serves me, I'm an inverse paranoid. I think the entire game is set up to make me happy and successful. The entire universe is involved in a hidden conspiracy to make me happy and successful, right? But the challenge is, and this comes back to emotional maturity, if you are living under the paradigm of thinking that we live in a comfort-centric experience, you are going to get slapped. We don't. That is a 20th and 21st century construct designed to sell you crap to make you more comfortable. We know if we want a strong, fit body, we don't put it in a comfort zone. That's called Netflix, couch, and Doritos, right? Which is also called fast track to diabetes, stroke, and heart attack, right? No, we want a strong, fit, healthy body to maximize our physical potential. We put it in the gym. And you don't go to the gym and get fit, you go to the gym and get sore. Right? And that's why most people don't show up. So you go through that. But if you had a personal trainer and you were born an athlete and you knew you were an athlete, you're going to step into that gym and you're going to turn around and you're going to, if the trainer isn't making you throw up in 30 minutes, you want your money back, right? Because you're there for the gold medal. Realize your life is a growth-centric experience, not a comfort-centric experience. That's a massive paradigm shift for people. And once they get comfortable with that, it gets exciting when the challenges, the dark corridors show up. Okay? But if you didn't know you were an athlete and you were sent to the gym, and you got this sadistic son of a whatever that's trying to force you to do press-ups and lift weights till your arms hurt and everything else, you're going to tick the box to do the least you can do. You're going to hide behind the freaking treadmill until he goes away. You resent them rather than be inspired by them. And that's how most people, unfortunately, have been conned into living life through a comfort-centric experience because they forgot they were an athlete to show up for the gold medal. And if you were to take the perspective of the muscle fiber, and you're on that last burning rep, you're sending messages to the brain, pain signals, stop, what are you doing? I'm being broken down, I can't do this, help. But if you're taking the mindset of the athlete, you're proud you can bust out another 2 reps and not lift your arms for an hour, right, and get a personal best. What perspective are you coming from? Now, back to the original point about the dark corridor. When you realize that life's growth-centric, you're here to take on challenges, not avoid them. If you believe you live in a friendly universe, you don't care what door opens. I've had prison doors open that I've been forced to walk into through absolutely zero connection to anything criminal. I got excited. That's not because I'm crazy, not because I was smoking something. Life is going to show up with what I call graduation events. Now, for some people, that's going to be a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. For some people, that's going to be the love of their life having an affair with their best friend. For some people, it's going to be a business catastrophic failure, whatever it may be. We have graduation events in Earth School. That's why we're here. For me, my last graduation event was being involved in a civil action over a multi-million-dollar deal I'd done years before with a multi-billion-dollar company. And they hit me with a contempt of court application, which I thought was a joke. I thought there was no basis for it. And I show up to court, I tell 50 staff, I've just got to pop into court next week and get rid of this BS. I never came back. They sold it to the judge, gave me 6 months in the most violent prison in England as a civil prisoner. Never been arrested, never been accused of a crime, still don't have a criminal record. Lost everything. This is 5 years ago this week. And they awarded costs against me. I was on legal aid because they froze my accounts. They spent $250,000 on, don't argue with a multi-billion-dollar company and $100 million law firm, FYI. Right? Not. David and Goliath story doesn't pan out that way in that scenario. But when it looked like I was being sent away to prison, right, as a civil prisoner, I lost my business. I lost my fortune, income, everything. I didn't get upset. I didn't get angry because I understood I live in a friendly universe. And if this is a graduation event, I'm going in to a scenario I didn't see coming. Every river bends. How do I deal with this? At that point, it's about what questions do I ask myself? See, the questions most people that are trained to ask themselves, and that goes, why me? Boom, straight into victim, straight into to me mentality. That's a tunnel with no cheese. Right? Instead, I got excited. Why? I live in a friendly universe. This is clearly a graduation event. So instead of going in with the identity of a prisoner, I went in with the identity of a secret agent of change. Why? I spent 25 years teaching positive psychology. If I can't walk my talk in this scenario and go and help people that would never normally get to see my work, then who am I? So I guess I went in, and anyway, long story short, and I wasn't segregated. I was treated exactly as a normal criminal prisoner. I ended up getting a lot of the prisoners off drugs. I was stopping suicides. I redesigned the intake system to reduce violence between the wings that was now being used in prisons all over the world. It's affected tens of thousands of prisoners every month. I mean, I went on to win a national award. It was the most incredible or inspiring adventure I've ever had the privilege of having. And I came out of that experience $250,000 in debt, 0 credit rating, 0 business. And I've never dug myself out of a hole that deep before. I'm an entrepreneur. I've lost and made it, several times. Never dug myself out of a hole that deep with my hands behind my back. I couldn't even open a bank account. Again, I got excited. How inspiring could this be? And that was 5 years ago. And since then, I've re-honored every commitment that I had to bail on when I went away. So we just sold 50 tickets to my seminar the week before I went away. I mean, everything got canceled. It was a crap show. Idiots that never met me trying to create sensational stuff in the press, all of this kind of stuff. And how I showed up inside, and I came out, rebuilt from scratch a $10 million business. And it wasn't easy, but I'm in the gym. I don't want it to be easy. Right? If I'm going to go, that was a graduation event. Now, did I pass? Did I fail? That's for me and the examiners to talk about. I'm not interested in other people's judgment. I am interested in what got me through that. I'll tell you. It was an ability a willingness to serve. One thing I learned from Tony Robbins, power moves to those in direct proportion to their willingness to serve. And the common denominator with everybody in To Me is that they're too focused on themselves and their problems. When you start getting into by me to through me, you start seeing, how can I add value? How can I serve? How can I be the example, not the warning? Because you get to be one of the other, whether you like it or not. And what made the biggest difference for me, and what's gone on to looking back to become one of the greatest gifts I ever had, was every 2 weeks during that experience, I wrote by hand to my senior coaching students saying, listen, just because the teacher's not in class doesn't mean to say you can skip school. So come along with me on this journey. So I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, within 10 days, I missed an attempted murder by seconds. Yeah, there was blood on the floor, was a daily occurrence. This is the most violent prison statistically in the UK. Have you ever seen Prison Break? Similar kind of deal. Similar stuff. Pentonville, the Victorian prison. I did a TED talk on it online. It's interesting to watch. But when it comes to helping people, I was writing every 2 weeks to my students, telling them what I was doing, how I was using the techniques, how I was applying what I'd been teaching them in a scenario that, I hope nobody listening to this ever has to go through. But if I can do it in there amongst, drug dealers, murderers, armed robbers, that had different agendas other than, want to be your friend, it's going to help you when your daughter comes home crying from school because she's had a bad day, or, your wife's upset because she's been downsized or whatever. So I wanted to try to teach. And when I came out after 6 months, my students said they'd learned more from those letters than following me around the world for the last 2 years on stage. And it had changed their life. And they started sharing it. And other people started chiming, saying, wow, this has changed my life. You've got to publish these letters. And I'm like, guys, these are private letters. Some of you pay me a lot of money before I went away to learn this. And it was my gift to try to help you guys. And like, well, it's going to help a lot more people. That was my soft spot. I'm like, my hot button. I'm like, I'm in. So we published it. It went, I think, bestseller in 2 hours, Amazon #1 in 4 hours, outsold 3 suppliers on the first day, sold to 40 countries on the first day. It's gone on to win several awards, and it's changed the life of pretty much everybody that's read the book. And I'm so grateful, because it's not written afterwards. It's not a memoir. These are the actual letters in real time as I'm going through the experience. And we put it out there, and I know you've had a look. It's called The Inside Track. I'm going to share that with you. And that would never have happened had that not gone on. Had what appeared to be the darkest night of the soul, lost everything, and built a 6-figure a month business at the time to 50 staff. I went to 3 staff in 3 days. I mean, lost everything and turned it into an adventure. And that's not because I'm specialist, because I'm just practicing what I'm trying to help people understand that is available. I'm just a normal guy. I said that at the beginning. I haven't got any special superpowers. I've just got a philosophy and a model of the world that allows me to turn the dark corridors into a way that I say, okay, if it's a challenge, I'm here to take it on, not run from it. Because I live in a friendly universe and it's got my back. I never felt scared. I never got into violence. And if I did, it's probably because I was due to meet somebody in the prison hospital. I don't know. I'd have figured out a way to reframe it that empowered me, not disempowered me. And I know people out there right now, especially the last 2 years, have been going through their own graduation events, their own dark nights of the soul. And if there's anything I can do to be able to inspire them or help them, as you know, I want to give this away to pretty much everybody that's here as a gift to try to help them, because what's in these pages took me 6 months to write. No, I'm kidding. Right? But it's battle tested, it's proven, and every trick that I've used, how do I get somebody to stop killing themselves in 5 minutes permanently when I've only got that amount of time on the wing? How do I deal with the violence? The threats. How do I, reframe my own psychology when I'm sitting there faced with having lost everything and reputation in tatters, because of misinformation. Staff, running for the hills. Financially in ruin. How do you deal with that and still come out stronger and bounce back stronger? Not through skill sets, but through mindsets. And everything I put in there is the best of what I could help my students at the time. And you can go to Amazon. I know you're happy for me to share this and pay $25 for it, but I want to give a copy away to everybody here for just pay me a little bit to cover the shipping.
Thank
and
you so
if
much.
we can get this into as many people's hands as possible. I mean, on the back you'll see legends in the industry: Brian Tracy, John Assaraf, John DeMartini. Some people you've had on the show, Kevin Trudeau, said one of the best books I've ever read in personal growth. And I don't say that to try to brag. I say it to remind people that when you're going through your dark night of the soul, if you focus on how can I turn this to my advantage, ask questions. Why am I being given this as a workout? Is it because my personal trainer believes in me enough to put me forward for the Olympics?
Yeah.
Mother Teresa said, I know God wouldn't give me anything I can't handle. I just sometimes wish he wouldn't trust me as much.
Yeah.
It felt like that. But if I create a link, getpetesbook.com/inspired. And for all of the people that have been gracious enough to give us their time here, I want to get a copy of that in your hands for, give me, I think it's like $10 to cover the shipping. I'll send you a physical copy within 24 hours, 48 hours, depending on where you are in the world, to your door. And I really want to help people because that has been more of a legacy than helping the prisoners even. It really has.
Thank you so much for your generosity, Peter. Peter, I've got some questions. There's so much in there I wanted to unpack. So one of the key things that you were sharing as well that's been huge for me as well is this philosophy around, hey, the universe is benevolent in its wisdom and it is my greatest ally. Even when I say that and the words come out of my mouth, sometimes I sit there and I go, I can feel the parts of me that sort of don't quite believe it because something happened on my journey along my way. And it's like there's an opportunity there for me to unpack some things and shift them. I know for sure. But one of the key things that I wanted to ask you pertaining to this by me, through me trajectory that we go through, and man, like the inside track, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, because if there is ever a through me story where you actually had to lean into your chops and go, it's happening through me. Why is this happening through me? Why is this actually supporting me? And what can I actually learn? And I love that we're a growth centric species, right? And so the whole thing is there to help us grow and evolve. Having that in your forefront of your mind when everybody around you, that's a big thing, right? Everyone around you, I'm sure there'd be so many people that were in victim mindset in the prison system. What are some of the things that we can do to actually solidify that muscle of going from by me, through me, like actually learning to trust the universe? Is it just when the shitstorm kicks up or the challenges come and you face them head on and you go, wow, I made it through that? Because that's been my experience. It's like, oh, I made it through that. And I sort of put a notch on the bedpost and then boom, oh, I made it through that. And I put another notch on the bedpost. And then sometimes when it gets really tough, it's like I look back on the notches and go, maybe I'll make it through this one too. I can learn to trust a little bit more. But how do we learn to trust that piece in the last little piece there?
Well, great question. Contrast frames are a powerful tool. The brain, the way that it's wired evolutionary, makes sense of things through contrasting it to things we already know. And it's that contrast that gives us the depth of meaning. So one of the things I was doing, I had a lot of books sent into the prison because the library was pretty much non-existent in terms of empowering information. One of the books I had sent in, many copies, was Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. Yeah. And I would challenge some of the prisoners to read that book and not cry with tears of gratitude that they were in Pentonville and not Auschwitz. And contrast frame. And you're right, when you go through an experience like that, it builds the muscle. I did a crazy race. Health is one of my values, and a few years ago I ran the Marathon des Sables, which is an ultra marathon. It's a marathon a day, 42 kilometers, 26.2 miles across the Sahara Desert, every day, back to back for 7 days, apart from day 4, which is a double marathon, 52 miles. Yeah, and you're running in 52 Celsius, 130 Fahrenheit. Your water's rationed to 9 liters a day. You're carrying 20 kilos on your back. You're running in soft sand. I mean, it's not a fun experience, but you do it to challenge. I did it at the time, challenge myself. What am I capable of? Who do I need to become in order to be able to run that race? It's far more important than any medal I was going to get at the end. And doing it, one of the reasons that inspired me to do it was contrast frame. If I can go run the desert, how do I feel about next time the bank puts up interest rates? I mean, give me a break. Yeah. Next time I have a bad day at work, hang on, if I can run the desert, I can handle this. Or a deadline gets short, or an expectation doesn't get met. I've actually just signed up for my next physical challenge, which is actually the transatlantic rowing race. I'll be 52 years old. I'm 50 this year. I'll be 52 when it kicks off. I can't get until 2022 because of there's no spaces, but I'm signed up. And that is basically me and my friend. Every year they leave La Gomera, where Christopher Columbus set off in the Canary Islands, just next to me. I live in the Canaries. And you're rowing for 2 hours, then sleeping for 2 hours, rowing for 2 hours, sleeping for 2 hours. It's just a 20-foot wooden freaking plywood type boat. And you've got to row 3,000 miles across the Atlantic to Antigua. And that 2 hours on, 2 hours off is a 24/7 pattern for 2.5 months.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's always another level. Yeah. Makes the MDS, the Marathon des Sables, look like a stroll in the park. Why am I doing that? I'm not here to prove anything. I outgrew that in my 20s when I was desperate to prove to everybody in the world I was good enough because I had so many insecurities as a young man believing I wasn't. Right? I'm past. Nothing to defend, nothing to conquer, nothing to prove is a powerful place to live. The call to adventure. Again, if I get 25 yards and capsize or sink, right? If I get halfway, it's who do I need to become to show up for that? I mean, I teach self-mastery.
Yeah.
Who am I not to demonstrate to myself that I'm still qualified to teach?
Yeah.
And something like that, don't get me wrong. I mean, the physical side is huge, but the mental side is where that's one. You get to a point where you're in the middle of the ocean on a little boat, and the only thing that is powering you is 2 hours on, 2 hours off rowing. And the nearest land is 4.5 kilometers beneath you, and the nearest humans in the International Space Station. You've got to get your mind right. On there. But when people are going sad, it's like contrast frames are great. What have I done in the past that would make this seem easier?
Yeah.
If I can handle that, it's like my girlfriend the other day. She was like, she needs to go and do a talk, and she's like, I'm scared, and if I can do it, I says, would you rather row the ocean or do the talk? Do the talk. Contrast into something. Pick a choice, right? And she's not joining me on that. But no, there's contrast frames help. There's many other things. One of the other powerful tools, and I was teaching this to prisoners, is to get to a place of acceptance. See, most people's stress comes from resisting what already is.
Right.
And if you're doing that, you're a fool, because you can't change what happened a tenth of a second ago. So resisting where you are, and I say it's one of the most widely quoted phrases on the internet, is resisting your current circumstances is the glue that keeps you tied to them. And so if we're resisting what's already happened, if the milk is spilt on your new carpet, it may suck. But resisting that, complaining about it, bitching about it, using it to reinforce your victim story is not going to do anything to put it back in the bottle. It's not going to get your carpet clean. So getting to a place of acceptance. Okay, this is what's happened. I'm going to prison. Right? That I can't change that. So let's get okay with that as fast as I can so that I can free up the energy that I was putting into resisting and use that energy to channel into what's my next best move. See, acceptance shouldn't be confused with reluctant acceptance. That's pseudo acceptance. That's fake acceptance. No, that's still putting in resistance. Like, okay, then no, that doesn't work. Nor should it be confused with apathy. That's resignation, whereby I'm just giving up. I give up my resistance, but I'm not channeling any energy into anything. I'm just going to sit there as victim. Makes sense?
Totally. Yeah. Powerful. Peter, thank you so much for sharing that. There is so much wisdom in there and so much to take home. I'm conscious. Before I let you go, I've got a question that I'd love to ask absolutely everybody. And again, thank you so much for sharing the inside track with us in the audience. That's /inspired. The link to the book will be in the show notes below. One of the questions I want to ask you is, when you hear inspired evolution for yourself, I know self-mastery is a big thing for humanity, for the planet, potentially for the universe. What does it mean to you, inspired evolution? What does it hold a hope of promise for tomorrow? I should stop answering it for you. What does inspired evolution mean to you?
I think we're on a similar page. I mean, the world is going through a big transition right now. We know that. Some people are going to use that as an excuse as to why they're in an unfriendly universe. Other people are going to recognize the fact that our entire opportunity for transcending and growing outdated patterns of limitation, of segregation, of unsustainability is presenting itself. The caterpillar, try to tell it it's going to get destroyed down to its DNA and then rebuilt as a butterfly. It's not going to look forward to it. But that's what has to happen for the butterfly to come, right? Now, when it comes to evolution, let's just unpack that for a second, because I think this will be a very interesting insight for people. Like, I'm not an evolutionary, I'm not a biologist, I'm a guy. But I'm a keen observer as to what makes people's lives work and what makes people's lives don't work in the context of fulfillment and fulfilling their potential. So if we go back 400 million years and look at the fossil records, we get some interesting insight into inspired evolution. We know that if we go back and look at the first single-celled organism, the amoeba. Now, if you carry that through 400 million years of journey, we get to this Homo sapiens thing with 50 trillion cells. Now, if you look at, and we know that the direction of evolution is enhanced levels of complexity. We can see that. It's undeniable. But it has inherent with it some pretty interesting insights. So if I take 50 trillion individual amoebas and I introduce one food source, what do I have? I'll tell you. War. Right? Yeah. Take a pack of hungry dogs and throw in one bone. See what happens. Yeah. Right? It's survival of the fittest. It's Darwinian mentality. It's sort of like separation, a hostile universe. Go get them. Yeah, every man for themselves. Yeah. So if you take the human body and you introduce one food source, you don't get war. You don't get the liver and the kidneys ganging up against the spleen and the heart to say who can get the most hemoglobin. Right? No. So what is the key to making evolution work? What is built into the algorithm of life that drives evolution, if you want to use that language? Well, cooperation is the key. Now, if you take the word cooperation and you extrapolate that to its logical conclusion, you pretty much hit one word: love. What is the purpose of being here? It's to choose love over fear in ever more challenging circumstances in the Earth school we're in. That's what I see as inspired evolution.
Brother, thank you so much for sharing that. It is such a pleasure. And thank you not just for sharing so much of yourself here today. Thank you so much for how much of yourself you've put in the book. It is super intimate, like you described. There is so much in there for us to glean. And I know this conversation, I could thank you for your time and energy here today, but it is a lifetime's work that's informed this conversation, your own trials, tribulations, challenges, breakthroughs. Thank you so much for the work you've been doing and how you've shown up here today. On behalf of myself and the Inspired Evolution audience, wishing you all the best always, Peter. Thank you so much for this.
All right. Thank you, and thank you for doing the work you're doing. I'll just sign off by just reminding people that my role here is simply just to hold up a mirror to remind them of their own greatness, and you do that so well for so many people, Amrit. It really is. If I'm lucky enough to have been able to walk a couple of steps ahead on my own journey and shine a flashlight behind me to help, inspire people to miss some of the gaps and holes that I've fallen into, then and if I've done a little bit of that today and served them, then that's why I'm here. It's why you're here, and hopefully together we can leave a little thumbprint on humanity to make it a better place.
Thank you so much, brother. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, leave us a comment, and if you want to stay in tune for new episodes launching every Monday, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay inspired to evolve.